Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sheridan, Brian Murphy, Eric Lopez again with you here as we wrap up the month of January. We would have had this out earlier, but we had two basketball games on Wednesday night, so we're going to talk about those today. And we got a lot on the plate as the spring sports get ready to fire up. Frustrating night for UCF basketball, guys. I think two losses by a combined 4 points that both ended in the span of about 30 seconds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was not fun.
It was not a banner day for UCF basketball. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Baseball Media Day. Murphy's got an interview with Joe Sheridan, who's trying to come back from injury. We'll check in with Joe, see how he's doing, and see if anything interesting came about from Media Day at all. Some good news on the McKenzie Milton front. Looks like he's going to be changing his braces. So that's good, one that he can actually run in and do all those kinds of things. We'll talk about that. And another, by the way, more UCF quarterback news with Quadry Jones coming back, and we'll talk about, and also Tacko Fall making his professional return to Orlando.
Tacko Fall, though, not coming back to play quarterback at UCF.
That's not quarterback news, I should clarify for those of you who may have been wondering. But we start with basketball, and we'll start with them. This is just a mind-bogglingly frustrating evening for UCF basketball. Both teams tipping off at 7 o'clock. Both teams losing conference games by 2 points. Men's basketball at home to Memphis. Final was 59-57. And I tweeted this at halftime, Murph, and it came true. I said, UCF played well in the first half. Probably should be up by more points than they are. Tell me if you've read this script before, and lo and behold, look what happened. They got outscored by Memphis by 6 in the second half, lose by 2. Memphis finally gets above 500 in the American. They're 4-3 in the conference. The Knights dropped to 2-6, 11-9 overall. Memphis was led by, of all people, Lance Thomas, who was 8 of 11, including 4 of 6 from exactly 3-point range, 20 points. They got 18 from Precious Achiuwa. We got, and then for UCF, 13 points each for Cesar DeJesus and Colin Smith, but Colin was only 4 of 13. Those two guys were combined 10 of 27 from the field. Colin also had 10 rebounds to go with 4 fouls. Dazon Ingram, 6 points, only 2 foul shots. 11 from Darren Green Jr. off the bench. Anyway, I mean, this is just the UCF, I think, succeeded in making this game what they wanted it to be, which was a rock fight, and couldn't come up with what they needed down the stretch, Murph. And Eric, you also have the breakdown on blackandgoldbanneret.com. But Murph, I want to start with you. What is this team still missing here?
Yeah. Well, this game really felt like everything that UCF could have done to win it, or at least everything that they would have wanted to win it, as far as controlling the pace, keeping the score down, making it kind of just a physical, kind of a messy game against a team that wants to get up and down and basically outplay you with their athleticism. UCF was able to neutralize all of that. They kept DJ Jeffries and Tyler Harris, Alex Lomax, a trio of Memphis players who averaged, I think, a combined like 27 points a game. Those three players didn't score a point. None of them. Precious Achiuwa, sure, got loose in the second half because that's what he's going to do. Like, he's going to be a top 15 draft pick. So even though he kind of got to lose the second half, it wasn't a great night for him. And UCF was doing pretty well with handling the ball, but man, Lance Thomas. I don't think you can prepare for that for a guy who entering this game was 1 for 16 from 3, had scored a total of 14 points in his last 10 games. Again, total 14 points. And he comes out and scores 20 points, hits 4 of 6 3-pointers, made some absolutely dagger shots late in this game. And that's the difference. I mean, you can also look at UCF and how they struggled again offensively. Second half, Colin Smith checks out after picking up his 4th foul around the 9-minute mark. And from there, over the next few minutes, Memphis goes on like a 7-0 run to really take control of the game, to which UCF never led again. But it's just in a game where you basically kept their star player, Achua, to having a pretty average night, completely shut out 3 of their other top scorers, and kept the game in the range where you want it. You still lose because the guy who's literally 10th or 11th on their scoring column has the night of his career in college. And it's heartbreaking. And like Johnny Dawkins said last night, very disappointing, because this team has been in close games seemingly all year long and just hasn't found a way to really close many of them out.
Eric, why can't this team score down the stretch?
Well, I don't think they have a guy that can take over a game like Achua did. Chua scored, as Murph mentioned, 13 of 18 points. I mean, that is something you can't put a value on that, not this year anyway. I will defend the offense in this regard, and if you listen to last week's episode, Brian kind of broke this down when we briefly talked about Memphis. Memphis is really good defensively. They're 3rd in the country in field goal percentage against. Memphis only gives up about 36% from the field. That's 3rd in the country. They only give up 30% on the 3-point line. That's 62nd in the country. That's all very good. So I don't think anybody should be surprised that UCF struggled offensively against Memphis. I think that was expected. I think UCF did a great job on Memphis offensively, holding them 14 points below their average. To Murph's point, they controlled tempo. But the problem is they don't have a guy that can go off for 7-10 points in a row. Murph, I think you even tweeted it out, and I put it on my recap on Black and Gold Banner Red. Even though Achua was contained for the most part, he is so good, and you got to see him now in person back-to-back this year. He's so good that he had that spurt in the second half, around that 10-minute mark, early in the second half, where you're like, oh boy, he's taking over the game, and he started making plays. And now that puts the defense to even form on him even more, and it gave Lance Thomas some open shots. UCF doesn't have that. They don't have that guy that people are like, we got to bring 2-3 guys on him because he can take over a game. Not this year. They've had that in the past. Right now, they don't have that. So I think that's why the offensive struggles. Add to the fact, Murph, Colin Smith gets into foul trouble, and when he goes on the bench, they kind of look lost offensively, especially inside where they don't have much scoring inside if it doesn't come from Colin, right, Murph?
Absolutely. I mean, in this game, they didn't play Avery Diggs at all. They played Ibrahim Famuke Doumbia because he's more athletic to keep up with Memphis's front line, but it wasn't like they were going to use him as an offensive force. They really needed Colin to be that guy on the block to, again, score, and he looked really good in the first half where he was he really controlled, I think, that game on both ends. I thought he did a really good job when Achua came close to him in their zone D of making things tough for him. And then offensively, he scored 10 points in the first half, played well. Then the second half, he picked up 3 fouls in pretty quick order, and that just seemed to once again leaves the offense stagnant. I will say that although the UCF offense, doesn't have a guy, like you said, without Colin, doesn't have a guy that can step up. It's not like Lance Thomas is a guy that we all thought was going to have a huge night. UCF has guys who can hit shots. We know this. We know that Darren Green or Matt Milan can go have 15 points. But like Thomas did, kind of go off unexpectedly. But it just seems that it's very few and far between where maybe you get 2 of these guys a night who has a good game offensively. You have basically Cesar DeJesus, You have Colin Smith, and then you have no idea what to depend upon offensively with this team.
Yeah, I mean it's so frustrating to watch because the talent is there, but it's just like I said earlier, it's the same. It's the same script over and over and over again, and that's the part that's frustrating. So, all right, let's look ahead to.
But let's. I mean, again, they were right there with a Memphis team that going in was the overwhelming favorite, and Murph, I don't know.
Well, it was a 1.5 point spread.
2 points actually.
It was a 2-point spread, and that's noteworthy, Jeff.
That is very noteworthy. That last three was very important to a lot of people there.
Thank you, Brent Musburger. Anyway, carry on.
They're very close, and I'm going to read a listener reader from the Banneret on Twitter, Wade Jai Hay, mentioned it to keep the positive. We could still turn the season around. The next 2 games are a must-win to get to 500. Can't wait for Saturday at USF. Go Knights! And here's the thing. They have been at every game. I think Houston would be probably the only game they weren't in, and even then they were sort of in it until the last 8 minutes. Would you agree with that, Murph?
Yes.
They're right there in games. Look, the Lance Thomas thing is kind of a random, fluky thing. You just, it's just bad luck. Sometimes you just tip your cap to the other team. I mean, I think UCF executed their plan well. It just, you can't predict the guy averaging 2 points a game to score 20. Props to him. But look, they're 2-6. They're at USF this weekend. Then they're going at East Carolina and host Tulsa. I'm not saying that they're gimmies, but there are winnable games. And if they can get over the hump here, win 2 out of 3, all 3, now they're near 500 again. So I wouldn't just all of a sudden say, man, this is just an unbelievable deal. It just is what it is. A lot of the positives are Darren Green had a second consecutive game off the bench where I thought he played very well. Dre Fuller, Murph, returned from a groin injury. I know he was rusty, didn't look good, but you hope now with him back in the fold, he can kind of get back into that rhythm that he was prior to the injury, where I thought he was playing at a very high level in a two-way, both sides of the court. So between those two guys, those are 2 freshmen right there. And then Tony Johnson, we haven't talked about, had a great game at Wichita State. Didn't play as much as I thought maybe in the Memphis game. Maybe the matchups just didn't play out. I think to me, from a Knight fan, obviously, yes, the win-losses is the important category. But I also think seeing these young kids progress as the year goes on is just as important, and I think can't be lost on that. Right, Murph?
No, I agree. I'm interested to hear. We'll probably get to talk to Coach Dawkins on Friday as a preparation for the USF game. I'd like to know or talk to him about how he handled Tony Johnson in this game. Tony was the first guy off the bench along with Darren Green. They both checked in together, but they were the first reserves off the bench for UCF in this game against Memphis. And, deservedly so. That Tony, was really good in a tight spot, in a tough place, a tough environment at Wichita State. So I think that was more of a nod toward Tony for a job well done. And this was sort of like his reward was he was the first guy off the bench. However, he had a really quick hook, and then you rarely saw him from there. I would like to know what Coach Dawkins thought about his few minutes on the court and whether some of that, pulling him so quickly, does he worry at all about him maybe losing confidence again after, such a good game. And then now you have a game where you're kind of just a whisper. How do you sort of keep a freshman's confidence up when there are these roller coasters, throughout the season?
Yeah, well, by the way, speaking of roller coasters, you're going to get the opportunity to hopefully see a little bit more of that in these next 2 games. But like you said, Eric, the next 3, I look at the next 2 as pretty critical because they're on the road, but they're, again, you said winnable games. UCF is in a 4-way tie for last right now in the conference at 2-6 in the league with Temple, Tulane, and their next opponent, USF. USF is 9-12. We've seen how they've struggled this year. ECU is only 1 game up at 3-5. They're 9-12 overall. But don't sleep on
player in the conference though as well. Let's quick note: Jayden Gardner. Murph, you saw Precious. Jayden Gardner leads the conference in scoring and rebounding. He's a one-man show there. He gave UCF fits last year. He's averaging 22 and 10. Doesn't get talked enough about because he's at ECU, but he's a heck of a ball player that UCF's going to have to deal with. deal there. So while I say it is a winnable game, obviously no locks at all.
Yeah.
But I do think there's opportunities here to get a couple wins here and get on a positive run here.
And they're going to have to do it quick because Tulsa coming up. Tulsa's 6-1. They're off to an amazing start in conference, 14-6 overall, and they're coming here. So could UCF get a couple road wins that would give them hopefully restore some of their confidence, right, Murph?
Yeah, it probably would. But I'd like to say one thing about what Eric said. Jaden Gardner, no one knows about him because he is in Greenville. But as a true sophomore, I mean, he was the freshman of the. I believe he was the freshman of the year in the conference last year, and he's just gotten better. He really is quite amazing to watch for a kid who's at ECU. And Tulsa, I know we don't look at them as like this name brand program, but I mean, at this point, they've already beaten Houston and Memphis. And they beat, I just feel like that game at home is critical if you win these first two games. If you win these two road games, man, that game against Tulsa at home is going to be dynamite because I don't know how much you can quantify confidence, but you would hope that they would have more of it coming into that game. And then, if Tulsa keeps going the way they are, you could have a matchup again against the number one team in this conference right now. Maybe not with their roster or their talent or their athleticism, but in pure record, they're atop the conference. And so we'll see what happens here. That's 10 days from now. But I do think UCF can win at USF. They haven't lost to USF in quite a while. And then at ECU, if you keep Gardner down, they're a relatively easy team to beat. Yeah. But again, who knows in this conference? We just saw Memphis lose by 40. Nothing is guaranteed on any night.
Well, yeah, I mean, Murr, let me ask you that because you've been very quick to kind of say, hey, I'm not going to press the panic button on Memphis. Let's give credit to the other teams or that. Now you've watched them in person. They break off this night. Are you still in that camp, or are you now concerned about Memphis? Because obviously the Memphis papers, the media was concerned, that's for sure, going in. Look, they lost James Wiseman. He left the team. That was huge. But it looked like for a while, hey, that wasn't going to be a factor. This was a team that now went from being a conference favorite NCAA tournament team to a bubble team in a matter of a couple of weeks. Your thoughts on Memphis seeing them in person?
Well, that's why the papers in Memphis are freaking out, because they had expectations for this team, and even without Wiseman, they were still going to probably, they should be a top 25 team just based on what they have in terms of talent. I mean, DJ Jeffries and Precious Achua, are NBA draft picks right away, right now. Again, the fact that Jeffries did not score and UCF still lost, holy Christ.
Yeah.
But I still think that Memphis, in terms of talent, probably maybe not the clear favorite, but probably one or two. It's just, man, they get on these spurts where they take some bad shots, and then you can really see why they've struggled shooting in conference. I know they want to shoot, but man, some of these guys aren't even close, and some of the shots are really, really rancid. If they just pound it into Achua, and really Precious needs to, I think, work a little bit more to get his spot on the block. There were times in that game where they were rolling, and he just wasn't setting up. He was sort of standing around waiting for a putback or a rebound. He needs to be a little bit more assertive. But my God, when he wants to do something, he is absolutely unstoppable. UCF was fronting him at points with Dre Fuller, which was just not even close. And he is probably, I think, I mean, no huge announcement here. I believe he's the best player in the conference. I mean, from what I've seen so far this year in person, he's outstanding. And when he wants to play well, he can carry this team on his back. But he just needs to be more assertive, and then their shot selection and handling with the ball just needs to be smarter. But when you have a lot of freshmen, sometimes they make dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
Also use a little better coaching. What?
Better.
Penny? Hardaway? By the way, one thing.
Shots fired.
I'm just saying that some people in the league kind of like, hey, let's see if he can coach before we automatically put him in the.
I don't think Penny Hardaway's primary objective at Memphis as their head coach is to actually coach. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, there we go. Here's my point.
Everybody knows that, though. That's a fact. Everybody knows that.
But here's the thing. I mean, and I know fans don't like to hear this. Sometimes you got to the breaks have to go your way. Like UCF didn't catch a break. You mentioned Lance Thomas, 20 points. That's a bad break. That's a bad luck that this guy just goes off on you the night. Look at Wichita State. UCF got called for 31 fouls. I wrote about this on the recap. The last time a UCF team got called for over 30 fouls in a basketball game was March 4th, 2009 at Tulsa. This is a team that
right.
Think about that. This team is usually under 20 fouls per game. They gave up 40. Wichita State went to the free throw line 42 times. The last time a team went to the line against UCF 40 times or more was UTEP at UTEP, February 11th, 2009. All these games are on the road. What a coincidence. So my point is they caught a bad break that night with the whistle. And I'm not saying that all the fouls were not legit, but there were some that you also shake your head, like the Dejon Ingram play against Wichita State where he's going to the basket. He scores. It looks like, hey, it's going to be a three-point play. Instead, they call a charge, and then he's running back to the court, upset, but he's not at the ref, and the ref whistles him for a tee anyway, which happens to be his fifth foul because in college, when you get teed up, it counts as a foul, and he fouls out of the game. Those are bad breaks, and it's tough to overcome those things, especially when you don't have a marquee star on your roster. That's all. I think that's got to be. So hopefully, as we get into these two-game road trip, they can catch some breaks as well as play well.
Well, to say it's a bad break is certainly an understatement to me. Next chance we have is, again, Saturday at 4 in Tampa, ESPNU against South Florida. The ECU game is next Thursday.
So. The road trip.
This isn't as
a roadie for Murph. Yeah,
I think I can make it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to spend any time on a layover. How about that? So
I know, but there's no out of commission bombers, Jeffrey.
That's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know. No, you can't go fly anything in Tampa. There's nothing interesting over there. Anyway,
there won't be as many people in the building as there was in Wichita.
That's probably true too. So. I want to flip over to the women because, dadgummit, this team is really frustrating on the road. So Saturday they take Memphis to the woodshed 82-66 in a game that was not that close at home. And the good things that we saw from that game, 21 points for KK Wright on 8 of 15. Brittany Smith continues to just to really play well. 6 of 9, 12 points. She only had 1 rebound, but Masni Kaba had 11 and 7. But then they go on the road to Temple, a team that's just ahead of them in the RPI. Temple's, I think, 5 or 6 spots ahead of them. I'll double check now. But then they go and another close game, nail biter, and UCF has a shot to tie it at the end, but it's no good. 67-65 was the final at McGonigal Hall. For UCF, believe it or not, their leading scorer, Cortasia Sanders. First time she's led UCF in scoring all year. 7 of 11, had a great game. 7 of 11, 14 points. KK had 13 on 6 of 16. Masni Kaba was 5 of 7 for 10 points. Brittany Smith added 9 on 4 of 9. But this was a frustrating game because it seemed like just when UCF felt like they had Temple, they ended up giving it right back. Marissa Mackins led the Owls with 22. Shooting, by the way, for this game, UCF 44%, Temple 43. It's just, like I said, this game was just infuriating to watch. Although Temple did have the advantage on rebounds, significant too, 41-30. But here's the situation. I think you got to look at the big picture because right now UCF women's basketball is 11-8 and 3-4 in the conference, 1-3 on the road, and in the league, and that's pretty frustrating. They just can't seem to close out these games on the road. They lost by 1 at Tulane, they lose by 2 at Temple, and they did get blown out by Cincinnati, but. Those are 2 games that I think they're going to look back at and really rue because, 3 combined points at this stage. And, now, and I have the RPI up, UCF right now is in 59. That loss last night ended up dropping them 3 spots. Temple actually moved up 4 spots. So as of last night, it was 56 versus 57. UCF drops to 59. Temple moves up to 53. UCF still the third highest team in the American in the RPI. But Eric, what is this team missing right now?
Consistency. Coach Abe said it on the postgame after the last home win. This team is finding consistency. They just don't have it. Even in this game, they fell behind early, came back, tied it up at the half at 30. You're feeling pretty good. And then the second half, Temple hits them with a run, and I think built the lead back up to double digits before UCF made a run back. So they just don't have the consistency. You mentioned they got beat at the boards. This team, really weird for a Coach Abe team, unlike past years, hasn't been good on the road. And you mentioned the Temple, the Tulane game. That was kind of a bad break in that, they were down one. They got a defensive stop. They got a rebound, but they didn't call a timeout right away or weren't given the timeout right away. So a 3 or 4 extra seconds kind of ran off the clock. I watched it on replay, and they, that kind of cost them because, if you get 3 or 4 seconds, that's an extra few dribbles. You could have gotten a better shot at the end of that game. And here they just didn't, it's tough. I mean, and I will say this, in talking to people that follow the league closely, this year, for whatever the reason, it's been a lot harder to win on the road in the league. This has been a home court league this year. And part of it, I think, is because these teams are so close. If you put UConn aside, everybody else is pretty much the same. And so it comes down to protecting your home court. And UCF's going to have to do that now coming back against SMU, who's coming off their best game they've had in a while. They blew out Wichita State at home. So UCF's got to bounce back at home and then try to find a way to build a consistency here moving forward because that's been their issue. It's just not been consistent effort on the road, and I think that's kind of frustrated the coaching staff.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now they're sixth in the conference at 3-4, tied for sixth with Houston and SMU. Ahead of them are Temple, Cincinnati, USF, Tulane, and obviously UConn. So this is. This one was pretty frustrating. Now, coming up on their schedule, again, they're back home Saturday to face SMU before going out on the road for a pair, separated by a week. They're Wednesday at Tulsa, and then they got a week off, and then they're at Houston the following Wednesday before coming home for Cincinnati and USF. But I think you're right. Protecting the home court is going to be key. 9-1. At home, the only loss to UConn, and that was by 7 points. They're going to have to do so against SMU, but they're going to have to start picking up some road wins here because they are squarely on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. And
I
probably where they are, they might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, we got to table that conversation until this team proves they could play consistently right now. I mean, I would argue right now that Temple is ahead of them as far as the pecking order to be a second team in the American, assuming the league gets a second team into the NCAA tournament.
That's also a big assumption, too.
Right, correct. But right now, I think this team just has to find consistency. And until this team proves they can be consistent, especially away from home, I think those conversations are kind of a moot. And look, SMU, let's not sleep on this. Is a key home game for them. They're coming off a very good game. Kayla White, a dynamic player for SMU to watch out for. She averages 11 a game. So does Janisha Cash. So this is, SMU. They got to take care of SMU here and then go on the road, as you mentioned, to Tulsa. That's not going to be easy and find consistency here because remember, UCF still got to go to UConn late in the year. They still got to play USF in Cincinnati. I think they still host Temple. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jeff. But
yes, they do.
So that's the good news is you've still got a lot of marquee games ahead. But this team has to prove they can be consistent. Otherwise, we're just going to be treading water here the rest of the way.
Yeah, they're going to take a hit here on their RPI because these next two games, SMU, Tulsa, both of those teams are in the 200s as far as the RPI is concerned. Houston is at 160 in that third game coming out. And by the way, Houston 0-7 on the road, but 8-2 at home this year. So
a great example of this league.
Yeah,
that tells you that I feel like if you go through the rest of the teams, you're going to see the similar one-sided home versus away splits.
Only, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 three teams other than UConn have above 500 away records. Tulane at 5-1, Cincy is 3-2, and Temple's 5-3. So there you go. I mean, that's
That is remarkable, isn't it? That is absolutely remarkable.
USF, by the way, 13-8, 5-2 in the conference. They're 2-3 away from home, and they're 11-1 at home. So yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's just tells you the league, though, and that's I think that is part of the reason why UCF hasn't fared as well on the road, because everybody's very good at home and they're beating each other. I mean, that Houston ratio is wild.
Yeah.
I mean,
8-2 and 7.
What is it about these Houston sports teams, Murph? They're so good at home and not so good as much on the road. It's almost like they have some advantages at home or something. I don't know.
Wow. Are we now looking into a trash banging situation inside women's college basketball?
Can we we may have to let the coaching staff know when they go to Houston on February 12th. Be on the lookout in that Houston staff. Is there any trash cans? Anything goofy going on? I don't know.
Sorry. It's just a trash can. Anyway.
Maybe they should just invite Dusty Baker, the new manager of the Astros. Dusty Baker, God.
Say goodbye to that. Say goodbye to that pitching staff.
No, both of you were wrong. It's a good pick, and Dusty's prevalence of blowing out pitchers is overblown.
All
You're
right.
fine.
All right. Well, we're gonna
transition.
Segue. We're gonna when we come back. Guess what we're gonna talk about, folks? Baseball. Baseball Media Day. This past week, we'll hear from Joe Sheridan, and Murph will give us his take on whether or not there was anything newsworthy at another UCF Media Day when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Brian Murphy, Eric Lopez with you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And as always, follow us at Black and Gold Banneret. We are UCF's home on SB Nation. All right, Baseball Media Day, Brian Murphy. Christmas in January. It was... First of all, I think everybody should have been walking around wearing those little stickers that say, hello, my name is, because there were only so many people that were there that anyone recognized with all the turnover on the roster. But you were there, and you spoke with a notable UCF pitcher who we haven't actually seen on the mound in a little while, and hopefully we might sooner rather than later. Is that right?
Oh, that is the plan, and yeah, Joe Sheridan, an Oviedo kid who grew up watching UCF baseball and then burst onto the scene as one of the best freshmen, in the conference and maybe in the nation in 2017 with the way he really was, maybe the best pitcher on that staff that won the regular season conference title. And then in 2018, just lost his control and went under the knife in May of 2018 for a torn labrum in his left throwing shoulder, and has not pitched since. It's been more than 500 days since Joe Sheridan has been on a mound, but he's rehabbing. He's on his way. The plan is, he says he's 100%, but talking to Coach Lovelady, it seems a little more cautious, but it does seem like he's on track to be ready. If not at the start of the year, then maybe very early on. But I got to talk to Joe about what these last 20 months have been like. And he was very honest, very open about his recovery, his rehab, the helpless feeling he had in 2018, pitching, when he knew something was wrong, but not really sure what it was. And I think most eye-opening is how he almost called the diagnosis of the torn labrum. He basically called it a relief without wanting to call it as much of a relief. But you'll hear it now in this interview with Joe Sheridan, why he thinks having a torn labrum in 2018 was almost a silver lining.
Just you're coming back from injury. So let's go the very basics. Labrum tear in your left shoulder, correct?
Posterior, yep.
Posterior labrum tear. And when did you go under the knife specifically?
May 31st of 2018, so the couple days after the conference tournament of my sophomore year.
How trying was that season for you leading up to the injury diagnosis? Because you had lost your control a little bit. Were you feeling any pain and a lot of that going into that?
Yeah, so a big part of that was I was probably hurt for pretty much the second half of the season. The second week of conference against Memphis was kind of the first time where I was throwing the ball where I was like, oh boy, like I don't really know what's going on here, and I was throwing it, and I just really had no idea what my body was doing or where it was going. So I was trying to kind of battle through that for the second half of the season, and obviously the results weren't there, and you try to tell yourself you're not hurt and keep going out there for the team, but it was kind of a relief when I found out that I had to have surgery. Obviously not a relief, but just to know that it wasn't that I am not good at baseball anymore. So, but the effects were still there kind of mentally, and coming back, it was a big thing where just trying to get that feel for the baseball again and know that I'm a good player was a thing that took a long time for me to get back. So
it's really interesting you say that. It must feel so helpless to know that you don't know where the ball's going, and there's nothing you can really do to stop it because your body just is betraying you.
Yeah, I think helpless, I was trying to think of a word because I knew this day was coming up, so I was trying to think of a word to describe it, and helpless would definitely be good.
Yeah.
And the other teams weren't helping me at all because I didn't throw a strike for like 3 months, but they kept swinging, so they kept throwing me out there, and I was like, come on guys, like somebody give me a break here to stop swinging. But it's been a long road back, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like now that I've been at what I think is the down of downs, I think it'll make the up of ups that much better and make me such a better player.
You know, the common theme is the shoulder rehab is much tougher than an elbow rehab. But for you, how has it been these last 19 months, 21 months?
A long time.
Yeah. What's the rehab been like for you?
Early on, it was really tough. Everybody's got different opinions. Everybody knows different stuff, but everybody's trying to help. So finding the people that I could really trust. I was up in Cincinnati all summer with a guy who specializes in PRI, which is Postural Restoration Institute, which is kind of a new thing that really kind of revitalized and regenerated my career because I was pretty much out of the game last May. I was throwing balls as hard as I could, and they're 71 miles an hour. So I went up there with a guy named Josh Ellman all summer, and he kind of got me back into the game and got me back to a place where I could start practicing again just to do the rehab to get back. So, and then my dad does physical therapy, so I was working with him a lot. But yeah, it's been a long road back.
When did you feel like the old Joe Sheridan, the Joe Sheridan 2017 even?
I think even fall was tough. There was a lot of ups and downs in fall. Obviously coming back after not pitching for 17 months, you're not going to come back and be what you once were right away. But I got after it this winter break, worked on a lot of stuff mechanically and health-wise and doing the things I needed to do. And coming back in the spring, the first couple outings I've had have been really good. So I'm starting to get that feeling more and more every day.
Has the surgery and the injury changed you at all as a pitcher as far as your repertoire or mechanics, anything like that?
The repertoire is the same, but I think the mindset's a little bit different as far as I know I'm not untouchable now or invincible or whatever it is. So, but I think with my confidence wavering obviously a lot during the rehab, and now I feel like when it comes back more and more every time I throw, I feel like my confidence is going to be so much higher than it ever was, which is kind of one of the reasons that I am able to perform the way that I am. So I'm excited to see how it turns out on the field in real games this year. So,
are you on track to be a part of that weekend rotation in February?
That's a question for 2-3. I don't know. We got a lot of good guys. I think we got like 8 starters that are all even across the board right now, so we'll see how we stack up. But even that competition on the team right now, there's a lot of guys who can compete for a lot of spots, and it's going to be exciting.
But I think the general consensus, the general focus of that question is, could you pitch right now or in 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you had to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm healthy. I'm 100%. Just as ready as all the other guys, and we're all working towards opening day. So, are
you a butterflies guy? Like when you step out on the mound, you get a little nervous, and then maybe if it's 18 months off, do you feel like you'll be even more nervous?
I wouldn't say nervous. I would say don't really know what to expect, but I think that's kind of one of the things that drives me is you never know. Like you go out in baseball and throw a perfect pitch and get hit 5 home runs off you, and you could throw a terrible pitch and strike out 5 guys in a row. So that kind of never knowing what to expect and just going out there and doing the best you can is kind of what drives me. And I've never really gotten nervous, but just kind of the fear of the unknown is something that drives me.
Where did you undergo surgery at? The City or hospital you went in?
It was Dr. Randy Schwartzberg at not Florida Hospital. I don't know what it's called.
But it's somewhere in Orlando.
Yeah,
basically.
he's our Jewett doesn't have an elbow guy,
Okay.
so he does elbows, and my dad's worked with him for a long time.
So now that you know what it feels like to sort of lose everything, lose control, what does it feel like now to be out there and just feel healthy? And what's it feel mentally to know that you're healthy?
It's kind of like a relief at the same time, and also it's a big confidence thing because when you feel like you've lost everything that you were. My freshman year, I felt like I was on top of the world and nobody would ever hit me and stuff like that. And then my sophomore year, I felt like I was the worst player ever. So it's kind of been a long road back, and the confidence is getting better every day, and it feels really good to be back there.
Sounds like a humbling experience almost.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It was a humbling 17 months. I think when I did the math, it was 505 days from surgery to my first live outing again. So it was a long time of just sitting and thinking and trying to figure out where my next steps were going to be and what steps I was going to take to get back to where I am now. As
you look at the staff as a whole, maybe who has stood out to you in preseason practice, fall ball, things like that?
Yeah, we just got a grad transfer from Nebraska, Chad Linsman, who's going to be a really good piece for us. He's come in, his fastball is really good, off speed's really good, and we got a freshman, Hunter Pattison, lefty, who really commands his stuff and he's got really good stuff. And then some funky guys, Billy McKay, who we kind of been missing that in the past, like a submarine guy who can come in and get good outs and big outs for us. And then, for the staff.
It's good.
That's a good piece right there.
Thanks, Joe.
Have a good one.
Okay, thanks.
So there's Joe Sheridan. Again, he says he's 100%. But I, when we talked to Coach Lovelady, he said that the Sheridan's velo, his velocity, is not quite there yet. But certainly, you should expect him to be a part of this team's weekend rotation. That as we learned on Media Day, I think Coach Lovelady thinks he has a lot of options going into the season as far as the pitching staff, with not just returners like Trevor Holloway, but also the grad transfer they brought in from Nebraska, Chad Linsman. And then you've got freshmen like Hunter Pattison, and then transfer guys like Billy McKay, who could be used, in a bullpen role, but as a submariner, which I think is very interesting because we don't really see many submarine pitchers anymore. I think the one thing that came out of this media day that I think was most encouraging, and you could sort of read it on Lovelady's face, was just after a year in which they dealt with so many pitching injuries, they have a lot of guys that they can really fit in, maybe up to 10 or 12 guys, or at least 8 in the rotation possible. And then the bullpen, double digits worth of guys who could contribute in some way. And for them to be this deep, it's a 180 from where they were at the end of last season.
So go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Let me just say this about Sheridan, since you talked to him. I think he's a big factor. Who knows what he looks like when he comes on the mound? He's 100%, Murph. But you saw him. We both saw him when he was 100% and what he meant to the team in 2017. He was a big part of them leading them to the conference championship. To have a guy that's pitched in those type of moments is super valuable here and could be a huge difference and a boost, even if he's not close to 100%, maybe even an 80% Sheridan. Because I thought Lovelady mentioned an interesting point about on media about too much focus about the velocity and things. It doesn't matter if you can't make the hitter swing and miss, like make the barrel of the bat miss there. You could throw 100 miles, but if they hit it with the ball, then you're screwed. So he's able to make guys swing and miss, which is very because of his positioning of the pitches. That's huge. If they can get him back, even remotely close to what he was, be a huge boost for this team in whatever role they have for him.
Yeah, and talking to both Lovelady and catcher Ben McCabe, they both have said, really high things about Sheridan's stuff. Not the velocity, but just the stuff, the curveball, the changeup that he's really well known for. That's there. They really like where the stuff is at, even if it's not at 100% as far as velocity goes. But like I said, Eric, you don't have to throw hard to be successful in this game. It's deception. It's movement. It's location. It's not about speed. If it was about throwing 100 miles an hour, then every pitcher who threw a flat fastball would be great. But obviously we know that's not true. But Sheridan is more of a crafty pitcher. He's a crafty lefty, even though he's 20 years old. He's a crafty lefty. He mixes it up. He wants to get you out of this changeup, and that right there, right now, is there. That's back. They say that's back to where it was in 2017, and that's most encouraging.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we're 2 weeks away from, already, huh? 2 weeks away from the start of baseball. Friday, February 14th, 2 weeks and 1 day from when we're recording this. So Sienna, back in town, baby. Bring back the Saints. Because they're come back.
Right, two quick things before we end here, Murph. And we're going to get into this a lot in the leading up to that, especially in our baseball preview. Because obviously, Jeff joked about it at the open of the segment about all the new faces, especially on offense. But I got a sense that Greg's very confident with the pitching that he has and the pitchers returning. Of course, knock on wood, be healthy. But is this the better problem to have? In other words, isn't it better to have guys back and feel good about your pitching staff and have questions offensively than the other way around, where you have no idea who's going to pitch, but you might have more position players? Because if you don't pitch in any level of baseball, you got no chance. And I think that was the thing that I took away from Media Day, what Greg had to say. He feels pretty good. First of all, he feels good about what he has position-wise. They're just young. But he really likes his pitching staff to carry this team. And I think as long as they have the depth and quality in pitching, I think they're going to be fine and maybe better than maybe some people think.
Well, I think I think the one staple that he has shown over his few years here is he wants a loaded, competent bullpen with a number of guys coming at you. He wants to mix things up, give you different looks, and I think that's where his team is based. And where he wants the team to always be based. I think he's got that again. Again, guys need to stay healthy, but obviously you have Jeffrey Higginson in the back end, guys coming back healthy like Nolan Lipkowski, and then the new guys like Billy McKay, as I mentioned. Jack Sinclair could be a swingman, so guys like that. And they put that all together. I think that's where they need to win first. The hitting, he knows, will take a while to come along. He even said, quote, "It's really scary," quote unquote, about the sort of lack of experience in this offense right now. There's basically one guy that's assured of a starting spot in this offense who was here for major playing time last year. That's Dalton Wingo in right field. Other than that, you probably will have 8 guys in this lineup who either didn't play much last year or were not here last year at all. So he knows the pitching has to win games for this team, at least for the first couple of months before conference season really gets going. But I think with the depth, as I mentioned, and the guys and the possibilities and the different looks that his pitchers give opponents, I think he's comfortable with where he's at on that end, certainly.
All right. So
that's going to be interesting there. Now, by the way, Murph, are you going to address the elephant in the room? Because I was blown away. I've never seen you get bombarded on social media with people criticizing you, Murph, for not asking the question to Greg Lovelady that everybody wanted to know, that Knight fans wanted to know, people like me wanted to know, Murph.
Oh, God.
You get to ask the question.
Oh,
Murph,
no.
would you like to address it?
I did not. So I asked a lot of questions of Greg Lovelady on Media Day. I did not ask him, as we asked him last year. Eric, you were there. We asked him the same question last year, but I decided not to ask him this year. I did not ask him who did he think was going to win the Royal Rumble, which of course was this past Sunday. But because of the quell on Twitter and the number of people that wanted to know, and shout out to Bailey Adams, who kind of tagged Lovelady in a tweet. Lovelady ended up responding and did say, I think hours before the Royal Rumble, that his pick was Edge with kind of a shrug emoji. And I will admit, that was a bold call. And for a guy in Edge who not only came back, but was only the third, he was the third to last guy out. Or no, he's the second to last guy out of that match. It was a pretty good call.
Yeah, well, all right, so I'm glad we got that out of our way. Again, baseball season starts on Valentine's Day
but still very good pick.
On February 14th, as I try desperately to pull us out of this nosedive of a segment.
Congrats to Coach Lovelady, though, on a great pick. And I recommend, if you go to the archives, Black and Gold Banneret, Murph did a great feature, 2 years ago, on Lovelady and wrestling. That's why we bring this up every so often. That's why it's a phenomenal, in-depth piece.
Wonderful, splendid.
In fact, when WrestleMania was here in Orlando, and he went to it, and we did a sit down, and Eric, you were there. We talked to him for a good 40 minutes.
Oh, it's amazing. Amazing stuff. me.
Yeah.
Hey Jeff, we're addressing the audience. We didn't bring it up. The fans brought it. I saw Murph was bombarded with tweets. I'm not even making this up. I was stunned. I mean, Murph, you probably were caught off guard too.
I did not expect there to be an actual interest into what Greg Loveladies' pick for the Royal Rumble was, but sure enough, there was. And it's a lesson learned, Jeffrey. It's a lesson learned that going forward, for as long as Greg Lovelady is in this position and we continue to hold Baseball Media Day on the week of Royal Rumble, it's a question that must be asked.
Yeah.
Who does Greg Lovelady have winning the Royal Rumble?
Riveting.
Because also, he got it right in 2019. He picked Seth Rollins and got it right.
Call me up when CM Punk is back in the ring. We've got some.
You're such a normie.
Whatever. We do have, by the way, we talked about Joe Sheridan's injury news, and there is some good injury news that we want to share. So McKenzie Milton, we were expecting an update on him this month, and his mom, Teresa, posted an Instagram photo yesterday, said, last day of brace, checkup went amazing. He will run, jump, and throw his amazing passes. God is faithful in all things. Now, McKenzie, ever the faithful son, did post an update shortly thereafter saying, just clearing the air, not out of a brace completely, just moving to a more functional sports-specific brace to be able to run and jump. God bless y'all. So, first of all, really good news for McKenzie Milton that he'll be in an athletics-approved brace when we consider, how much time he has spent, in what was actually a full leg brace. So this is some pretty encouraging news. No, Murph?
Absolutely, and it's right on track with what he told us when we met him in November, that this was sort of the next step in his rehab, is getting out of this brace and into a more sports specific brace, and he's right on line with what he said then. So as we continue to watch his recovery, he'll continue to, I'm sure, update us. He or Teresa will continue to update us with his progress, and certainly UCF fans will take every update they can get, because it's just, I mean, we always keep thinking about, can you imagine McKenzie Milton making that comeback and what that scene would be like?
Yeah,
and this is just another step on that road.
Right. So, again, I think McKenzie struck the right note in being, fairly cautionary about it. He's like, look, this is good news. It's not that I'm completely out of a brace. Everybody calm down. But I'm going to be wearing a brace, just one that's approved for running and jumping and doing all sorts of conditioning work. So, again, happy for Milton, hoping he's hoping he continues to recover and recover well. So that's good news. And some other UCF quarterback news that let's drop this Murph bomb right now. Quadry Jones. Yep, Quadry Jones it's happening, Murph. I'm not going to let you. I
didn't break this down. I didn't break any part of this.
Oh, that's right. You didn't break it. But anyway, I'm going to give it. I think it qualifies as a Murph bomb anyway.
Oh, God.
Quadry Jones is back at UCF. He reportedly actually was enrolled at Alabama State and, didn't like it there. So he left and re-enrolled at UCF, and now he's back. He's back in the quarterback room. Murph, what's your insight on on why? Was it buyer's remorse? Like, what happened here?
I think this is something that, hopefully they allow us to talk to Quadry during spring ball, which should start here within the next month or so, and we can dig deeper into this. We really don't know the exact reason for why he had such a quick turn of about face, within weeks of committing to Alabama State and then coming back to UCF, and of course the night that he basically the night that the word was broken that he's back at UCF gets a commitment from a 2020 quarterback, Parker Navarro, out of Phoenix, which they needed one anyway, because we talked about how thin that QB room is with only Dylan Gabriel, Darryl Mack, and the recovering McKenzie Milton. They needed another quarterback. Well, then they got two on the same day. Jones returned, and Navarro joined the program through a commitment. And so now that QB room looks a lot deeper.
Suddenly there are more people in the room, which is good.
Right. What it means for Quadry, we don't really know as far as on field. I mean, he could probably just end up being a third stringer again and sort of a gimmick guy, which we've kind of seen him be. Whether he's but maybe it's just more about him being comfortable. Back at home, obviously, as a Jones high grad, Orlando kid, spending his college years in Orlando, maybe that just is better for him as a person. And I think people fret about, well, he's not going to play much if he sticks at UCF. Yeah, but if he didn't feel right about leaving here and he wanted to come back because this is where he felt best as a person and as a scholar to finish his college and to live here, that's what's really important. It's not really about, well, he could play more at Alabama State. Yeah, I get that. He probably would have. He was started for them. But if he didn't feel it was right and he feels more comfortable here, then there's really no other argument to be had.
Right. I mean, whatever my stance on this kind of thing is always the same, and it's with the same with any player who goes into or leaves the transfer portal is, look, wherever they feel comfortable going to school, go to school there. Okay, it's we think of it as free agency for but non-athletes, you can transfer schools however you want based on whatever you want, and if you feel more comfortable being somewhere else, awesome, best of luck, finish your degree, and and thank you for your contributions. On the other hand, if you come back, awesome, great, love it, we love you here. It's everyone keep perspective that these are kids in college, please. So, and by the way, the one thing is, I guess the one bummer about it is, if Quadry does play more, his passer rating is going to go down, quite possibly. He is, for his UCF career, 4 for 4 for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns for a passer rating of 517.0. So, but those are the risks you take.
I know those stats are what's most important to you.
Yes, it's all about the numbers. The numbers don't lie. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Tacko Fall back in town as a member of the Boston Celtics. We hear from him prior to his game with the Orlando Magic. And we wrap up some other things around the world of UCF sports as well. Stick around. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Jeff Sheridan, Brian Murphy, Eric Lopez. Let's wrap up a few things here before we go away. Tacko Fall back in town. The Boston Celtics called him up for their game at the Orlando Magic earlier this week. Tacko did not play because the game was close, unfortunately. Fortunately, if you're an Orlando Magic fan. I guess if Tacko Fall was in the game, that could have gone one of two ways. Anyway, I've totally derailed the intro. But anyway, Eric Lopez, you were there. It was good to see him again, and you caught up with him at the Magic game, right?
I did. I caught up with Tacko Fall in the pregame prior to that Celtics Magic game on Friday night. It's been an interesting rookie year for Tacko Fall. He's been bouncing back and forth between the Celtics roster and the G League roster in Maine, and I talked to him about that. How is that adjustment going for him, as well as what has he learned since his days at UCF to now in the NBA? What's the biggest thing he learned, as well as what does he think of the current Knights team, and what did Johnny Dawkins teach him that he's using now in this process here of his professional career? Here is Tacko Fall on the Black and Gold Banneret.
So you're back here in Orlando here on the regular season game. What's this like for you? It's kind of a quick turnaround.
It's great. It's great. Like I said, it's pretty much a homecoming for me. Grew up in Orlando. Became a man here, and I'm really fortunate, for the opportunity to come here and play in front of this crowd again.
What's the process like? Because you're playing in Maine. You've done this before this season, where you've gone back and forth. Just take us through that. What is that like?
It's a grind, but at the same time, it's a blessing. You get the opportunity to play with these guys, but at the same time go play in the G League and get a lot of playing time and keep getting better, so that whenever my name is called here, I'm ready to contribute. So it's helping my game. I'm getting better every day, and I'm really looking forward to what the future brings.
What's the biggest thing you've learned since the start of the season when you came here in the preseason from now? What is the biggest thing you've learned?
Just a lot. The pro life is very different from college, from anything that I've experienced. So just getting adjusted to that and learning more about my game, learning more about my body and how to take care of it and everything.
How do you feel you're a better player today than you were when you arrived with Boston in the Summer League?
My confidence is definitely a lot up there because now I have a couple games, up my sleeves. So that, and I feel better physically. Getting in better shape every day, even though there's still another step to take. I feel stronger, and I just being a student of the game, trying to learn as much as possible from my teammates, the coaching staff, and I've been really fortunate to have good coaches like Jay. He's been working with me pretty much all the time, and when I go to Maine as well, I got good people out there. But it's been a fun process.
You mentioned Jay Larranaga. How has he helped you? Because I know he works with your shot. I've seen him in warm-ups with you, either when you're here in the preseason. What has that been like working with him?
It's been amazing. Jay doesn't put you in the box. Because Jay just first of all, he makes you he lets you have fun, and he has made the process really fun. And like I said, he has helped my game tremendously as well.
How do you handle the fanfare? Everything you do now is on social media in Maine. You're popular up there. I mean, you got a lot of votes for the NBA All-Star. Is it wild? You get all these ovations when you step into the court and things.
I mean, I always try to sit back and reflect on that and see how blessed and fortunate I am, and I'm really thankful, for all those people that. Come on, Graham. For all those people that care about me, care about my journey, and want to see me do well. And I always tell them thank you, and their support doesn't go unnoticed.
Have you been able to follow the UCF team this year and how they're doing in college? What's been your thoughts when you've been able to see?
I've watched a couple games. Coach Dawkins is a great coach, and I feel like he's doing a great job. And though he's going to have those guys play hard, he has built the culture. Yep, and they just going to keep getting better.
What's the biggest thing you learned from Coach Dawkins?
Patience. A lot of patience, and just be yourself. Go out there, play hard.
That was Tacko Fall in the pregame there. I got to talk to him there in the locker room, and great to catch up with him. He's such a great spirit. I mentioned him off the air about how he made our all-decade team in basketball, and he was kind of like, really? I was blown away. He was really touched by that. Very appreciative, but you heard there at the end, he talked about patience. That's what he learned from Johnny Dawkins, guys. And I think that's important. That's a great word to describe Tacko right now in the NBA. Because, I was at the Celtics game, and I've seen some people on social media, why isn't he playing? This is a patience. There's going to be a lot of patience here. He is still a project. He's still learning. Celtics are not just going to throw him out there just for the sake of it. They're going to make it valuable when they play him. And I think patience is a good word with him. He's improved. He talked about that. What are the things he's worked on? He talked about working with Jay Larranaga, who's the assistant in Boston, of course, the son of Jim Larranaga, the head coach in Miami. But patience is a word I think that's very well when it comes to Tacko as far as his career. But he's in a good situation with Boston there. They know what they're doing over there with Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge and the Celtics brass. I think he's in a good spot. I think he's happy. And he's really enjoying this process, and that's what he has to do. And I think that's the right approach to have, guys. And we hope for the best for him. Remember, Boston will come back in late April, towards the end of the regular season to play the Magic. And who knows, could be an opening round playoff matchup, Celtics Magic in the playoffs. So we might see Tacko back one or two more times here, not counting perhaps trips to him to go into Lakeland when his main team takes on Lakeland in the G League. So good to catch up with him.
Well, for the Celtics this season, he's played in 4 games. He has scored, or he's averaging 4.3 points per game. He scored a total of 17 on 8 of 11 shooting and a total of 21 minutes on the floor. I'm trying to pull up his G League stats with the main Red Claws here, but he's again filling up the stat sheet here for the Red Claws. I'm pulling it up right now. He's played in 17 games. He's come off the bench in 16 of them. But he's averaging 13.5 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 2.9 blocks per game in about 23 minutes per contest. So he's filling up the stat sheet. By the way, he's also shooting 72%, which is right in line with where he was in college. So he's playing well in the opportunities he's being given in the G League too, and that's why Boston keeps bringing him up. I think they were doing him a favor to bring him up here in Orlando, but he's playing pretty well, I think, down there, at least for a rookie. Is that right?
Yes, he's doing what he's got. He's a popular player.
Oh, he's beloved up there.
It's funny, he's up there, and when he gets called up here. Now, you mentioned he got called up. Enes Kanter was out for that Magic game. So was Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So they were shorthanded. So they kind of needed the bodies. But and Murph, you know this because you were there with me in the preseason game. Like Grant Williams, the other rookie for the Celtics, played at Tennessee. He's really tight with Grant. Like when I was interviewing Tacko, Grant was trying to distract him. I think there might be a part in the interview where you heard him pause a little bit. That's because Grant Williams is making all these facials on him, trying to get him to crack. They have this. Their locker rooms are next to each other. But that's the cool thing about it is even he's coming in and coming out because there's only a limit of how many days he could spend with the Celtics before they have to make a decision on him. They want to keep it under, I believe it's 45 days with the big roster. Otherwise, that two-way contract kind of changes a little bit. But even though when he pops in or pops out, he's so popular with the guys and they embrace him and he has that kind of an infection in there in the locker room, which is not that common when it comes to rookies and and veterans are concerned across that roster, which they have a lot of great veterans. But him and Grant Williams, Murph, have really been tight.
Yeah, no. Well, two things. One, Tacko Fall does not have an infection. It's infectious. I really wanted to clear that up. That really bothered me for a second.
This has been your Boston Celtics injury update. Thank you, Murph. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just difficult. But yeah, no, you can hear him in the interview and the question about how he deals with the fanfare that you asked, Eric. And as he's answering that question, you can hear Tacko go, "Come on, Grant." Like he just interrupts because Grant's behind Lopez trying to distract Tacko, and Tacko at that moment wasn't having anything to do with it. But you can those guys are just really, really close knit and love to play and get along. So, but no, it's great to see Tacko. I know people are so happy that he was called back up for this game in Orlando, even though it doesn't really fit the narrative of, well, the Celtics called him up because he used to play college ball down the road. Like, no, they called him up because they had no other front court player. They really needed someone to be on their bench for depth. But at least it was great to see him. And although he didn't play, he was, as I wrote on the site, I don't think that really it would have been lovely if he played, but the fans turned out. You could see him on the bench and in warm-ups, and he was obviously still grateful to be there regardless. This trip did mean a lot, or that game meant a lot to him for him to be there. I mean, he had been circling that on his calendar. He wanted to be there so for him to get that opportunity was nice in itself.
He was active. He was active on the roster, so he shows up on the roster there, box score, that he was at the Amway Center, and that's a big deal. I mean, for a kid that's grown up here, lately played high school and college ball, that's pretty significant. By the way, the cool thing about it, our interview was done. A guy that was waiting to talk to him was a famous soccer player, Theon. How do you say it, Jeffrey?
Thierry Henry.
Thank you.
Thierry Henry.
He just walked into the Celtic locker room. He's friends with Evan Fournier of the Orlando Magic, but he went in there and actually spoke to Tacko. I don't know if they knew each other or he just wanted to introduce himself to Tacko, but he talked to Tacko. I left him alone, obviously. But that also speaks to the popularity of Tacko. People are interested in him, and just getting to see him in person and talking to him. I wrote about this when he was here for the preseason, how he's the most popular UCF athlete right now in sports.
Did you see he finished? He finished what I forget exactly where he finished in the NBA All-Star voting. I think he was in the top 15, but there were the voting goes fans, media, and players, and they all have varying weights. But this fan votes were in the 6 digits. No media voted for him, but 7 players voted for him, which I thought, I'm like, and I posted that up on Twitter. I was like, I need to know who these 7 players are because they're national heroes.
Well, I guarantee you. I mean, Murph, wouldn't you agree that at least a couple of those are Celtic players? And I would like to think. I think Grant. I could see Grant Williams being one of them. Not to, that they'll never admit any of that stuff. But I would have to believe a couple of those are probably his teammates. Probably.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So it was good to catch up with Tacko there. Hopefully, we'll see him again. Hopefully, he'll get some more playing time as the season progresses, and we see him again when the Celtics return to.
And by the way, also,
Orlando.
if you're a rooting interest standpoint, because I confirmed this with some of the Celtics people I talked to, if the Celtics were to win an NBA title, or let's say win the Eastern Conference, which is not crazy. I mean, I think they're one of the 3 best teams in the East, alongside the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers, and you can make an argument Celtics are top 5, top 6 in the league. If they were to win the title or get some sort of ring, Tacko would be eligible for that.
He gets a ring, right? Yeah, because he was on the active roster. So.
All
right.
No Celtics.
You're not going to catch me saying that. A couple of updates from other UCF sports as well. So UCF track is already in the midst of their indoor season. Their most recent meet was at the, here it is. This is the Rod McCravey Invitational, which was hosted by the University of Kentucky. 5 top 10 finishes for the Knights there, including Cheyenne Hyde, who's turned into one of probably UCF's best sprinter. She's finished second in the 60-meter finals. And UCF also got some strong performances from Victoria Young in the 3,000 meters, and Jamie Tomasetti as well, finishing 11th and 12th respectively. So something to keep an eye on as the season progresses. Also tennis. All right, Eric Lopez, here you go. You're the one who stays up until 4 a.m. watching the Australian Open. Meanwhile,
That's correct. That is why I misspoke on the Tacko Fall, which Murph corrected me on.
Yeah,
and I'm not a many hours sleep watching Novak Djokovic beat Roger.
This is strictly self-inflicted, by the way. But men's tennis is 2-2. They finished off the ITA kickoff weekend out in LA at the LA Tennis Center, splitting with San Diego and UCLA. They beat San Diego, who's ranked number 24 in the ITA, 4-3, and then lost to number 10 UCLA 4-3. They are on the road in Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest. Wake Forest is ranked number 7 on Friday. In the Oracle ITA Division I men's team tennis rankings, UCF right now is not ranked. They are receiving votes, but they are not ranked in the top 25. Their counterparts on the women's side are 2-1. They are number 15 in the ITA rankings. They, as I'm pulling up their schedule right here, here it is. They spent their ITA kickoff weekend in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the home of the Wolverines. They beat Utah 4-3. They lost to number 15 Michigan 4-2. They are home at the USCA National Campus to play Florida State, who's ranked number 9 on Friday, and then they play Texas A&M, number 18, on Sunday at home. So they are.
Is that our trip, Jeff? You've said last week we're going this year. Is this the weekend we're going?
I got to check the calendar here because I want to make sure that I got nothing scheduled because the wife schedules me for things here. I might be able to do. I want to try and do Sunday. Murph, what do you think?
What's what day? Like the 9th?
That's the Texas A&M game. That's the 2nd, not the 9th. The other one that might be an option would be.
Jeff?
Huh?
It's a noonie. It's at noon, Murph. It's at noon. What, are you going to worry about missing the first couple hours of 800 hours of pregame show? I mean,
I'm spending time with family, aka eating.
That's fair. I get it. We got Ole Miss at home. We got Ole Miss on February 21st. We got either TCU, Nebraska, or UCSB on Sunday the 16th. So there's some good Sunday games coming up. Texas on March 15th. That might be an option. Yeah, we got some options coming up here. Are they going to do the Tennis Channel thing again?
I would assume so.
I hope
think
so.
They will do that. I would assume. I haven't seen anything official yet, but I would assume that they would do that, considering the Tennis Channel has they actually have a setup there where they can do shows from there. So yeah. I would assume yes, that will come once they get past the Australian Open coverage and things like that. But yeah, I would assume that's going to happen here, picking up pretty soon. So all right, I'm excited. We're going to do this. Texas, that's pretty good too. I mean, we're gonna have to just break down that schedule. But Texas, is that the women's or the men's team?
That's the women's team.
Okay, they're very good too.
The men, they're playing Sunday they're at Virginia, then they're at Illinois February 9th, and Saturday, February 29th, Leap Day, they're home for FAU, and then Sunday they play Stetson March the 1st. Those are early matches, by the way. 2 o'clock for FAU. Stetson's at 11 a.m. I might be able to pull that one off, 11 a.m. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll bring Connor down, show him some tennis. That might be fun. And then just a couple quick updates. By the way, haven't heard anything from men's golf yet because they don't start their season until the day after Valentine's Day. They are playing the Gator Invitational that day. 2-day event, February 16th, 15th, and 16th up in Gainesville. Women's golf starts their season February 2nd at home at Eagle Creek Golf Club. They have the UCF Challenge on February 2nd through the 4th. So, and with that, we are all caught up. All right, boys, what you got coming up this week? Murph, what do you have?
I'm going to Tampa. What about you?
I'm. It's great.
You sound excited, Murph.
Yeah, you sound thrilled.
Eric, you know my history with Tampa. Rarely do things go well for me.
I hope your AAA membership is updated.
Just hope and pray. Hope and pray. Just that's all. That's all I care.
Listen, here's what you do. So you're going to be at the Yuengling Arena, right? So just contact Colin Sherwin. If things don't go well, just give him a call and you'll be taken care of. You'll be all right.
If I get pulled over, can I say, hey, I know Colin Sherwin card?
I think that could work. Yes.
That might get you executed. I don't know. Lopez, what do you got?
All right, so I'm going to be watching Australian Open big men's final Sunday morning. So it's probably a good thing we're not going to the USTA Center on Sunday morning because I'm going to actually watch the men's final live. Novak Djokovic against one of the new gens.
What time is this? 4 a.m. 3:30 in the morning Eastern. That's
right.
Not. I don't think that's the morning. That's still the night.
I'm jealous of Murph. All those years he was on the West Coast, you could watch the final at midnight, right, Murph? You could used to watch those at midnight.
I'd say for anyone who's never lived on the West Coast, you'll never understand this, but every sporting event is better on the West Coast.
I agree with. Because I have been in the Pacific time zone, and it is fantastic. NFL football at 10 a.m. on a Sunday is just a gift from the gods.
And the London game started at 6 in the morning, which I know it's early, but it's still fun. And sometimes it's a little cumbersome when the night games start at 4, but you get used to that. You're off work soon after that anyway, and then everything's over by 10. Or if you got like you said, you got the Australian Open on, you can probably watch, the first couple of sets early on. I mean, but again, I will maintain. There is no better coast, not just because I live there and it's still my home and whatever, but there's no better coast for sports than the West Coast. It's by far better than the East Coast, not even close.
You came back.
Yeah. If you're a sports reporter, it's the best. Just be in LA. I mean, that's all you got to do. You got major airports all over the place. Everything happens early. You can get a reasonable amount of sleep. It's fantastic. So,
well, yeah, that's gonna be fun. But I will have UCF stuff to do. I will be filling in for Scott Adams on Saturday, calling the UCF SMU women's basketball game.
All right.
Audio broadcast on UCF Nights TV, on Twitch. Get that. Of course, the game will also be televised in the American Digital Network. Just mute them. Our good friends, with all respect. Mute them. Listen to my broadcast. I'd be appreciative. You're going to be there, right, Jeff? PA?
Yes, I will be there for PA on Saturday. So we'll both be in the house. Jeremy Brenner will be there. Yep. So we got that game covered.
And so we'll be there while Murph's in Tampa hanging out at the Yuengling Arena there. And then I will be hosting the UCF softball opening day dinner that night at right there at Doubletree, right next to the next to the campus. That will be going on tonight. Looking forward to that. Boys, 1 week from right now as we record, I would be on my way for the UCF softball complex season opener, UCF Indiana. 6 o'clock, baby. Softball's here, Merv. Softball, baseball.
Softball beats out baseball once again, doesn't it, huh?
Yes, that's very favorite.
There you go.
I usually do. 1 week ahead. So we'll have a softball. We'll preview the softball season our next week. We may have a special. We may not. We'll see. I know we're going to have baseball stuff specials coming up. Murph, we've made it. We're almost there. You've been clamoring since October. Baseball, the spring is here.
I can't wait. God, February is a big month, not just for college baseball, but camps open in Arizona and Florida. It brings a tear to my eye.
I'm sure.
And, by the way, for you football fans, I've heard from some sources in the conference, we might get the conference schedule between now and the next week or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Should happen.
Conference schedule, baby. Could be this week, could be next week there, could be close. And that'll give us an idea what the conference schedule will look like, and you can start planning ahead for football as well.
We can. So let's say it comes out in this next week. So we'll spend a good chunk of next week's show deciding what games are wins and what games are losses. 6 months before we play a single down.
What are you talking about, Murph? There's no such thing as a loss on that schedule right now. I'll tell you right now. Never.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, let's get out of here.
It's going to be more about your trips, Murph, and where you're going to be in October, November. I'm interested in.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they probably have to go to East Carolina, which is always the hardest one. I might have to drive again. We'll see. That's going to be tough.
But a good place to be, nonetheless. Actually, a really fun place
you're
to
back
be.
to USF, Murph, so you're going to have to make that drive to Tampa next year again.
That's okay. Again, driving to Tampa is fine. It's quick. I've driven to Tampa literally dozens of times. I've only driven to Greenville once, and it was kind of harrowing. So,
I did not. Wow. Maybe that should be a part of the football season, is the trips with Murph diaries or something. Can we put that on the site, Jeff? Just have Murph track Murph as travels adventure.
We gotta find a good way to brand that before we can actually go about it. But I think we'll kick around some ideas.
Don't say kick around. It's offensive, Jeff.
What a way to end the show. Oh God. All right. I'm sorry, Murph. Anyway, on that note, let's go ahead and get on out of here. Brian and Eric, thank you once again. Make sure you follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Spokes_Murphy on Twitter, Eric Lopez Elo, Jeff_Sharon. Also, don't forget to follow all of our other staff members, Jeremy Brenner, Luke Saris, Derek Warden, as always, with his he's got the basketball gallery up, which is great. Anthony Lenahan, and everyone here at Black and Gold Banneret. We got to try and get the latest up for you on all UCF sports, and we're really proud of that, so we really appreciate it. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Enjoy the weekend.